You're on with Fagan and Beagle in the morning. Give him a call, 569-1080. KOAN.
All right. Just a few minutes left on the broadcast here on Fagan Beagle in the morning, Hot Dog KOAN. We're talking to Joe Miller running for Senate. Joe, you're my kind of politician. You're radical. You're committed. You're a constitutional conservative. You're as much like the founding fathers as any kind that we've ever had in this state. As you know, I supported you fervently in the last time you ran. I believe in you. I think you would make an outstanding senator. I think if we had more people like you, this country would turn around much quicker as opposed to more of the establishment Republicans. But, unfortunately, the number one goal in my mind at this point is removing Mark Begich from the Senate for so many reasons. Obviously, the fewer Democrats in the Senate, the better chance Alaska's going to be able to get its resources to market. We've got to get him out. And I don't see you currently as the strongest contender to take Mr. Begich on. I wish I were wrong, but that's the way I see it. And what say you?
Well, I think that we need to be cautious about, and I know this is not just the money for you, Dan, but that really is what motivates a lot of folk in that conclusion. I think what we have to do is look at what has happened historically when we put up candidates that don't offer enough contrast with the incumbent. And we saw what happened with Romney in the last presidential election, McCain the one before that, even a few years before that, Dole. And in all three of those cases, they did not provide sufficient contrast with the Democrat that they're running against. And, I know that some might disagree with me, but both Mr. Treadwell and Mr. Sullivan offer, similarity to Begich in many respects. And I'll just mention this. I mean, I don't think that conservatives help elect liberals. And, some might say, oh, this is a throwback to Murkowski. I do think it's important to note that when you have two candidates that support a senator, an incumbent senator, who votes 72% with Obama, that provides Mr. Begich with a solid out to argue, well, just reelect me. I'm pretty much like the other senator that you like. But I think it's more than that. I mean, you can look at the various issues of contrast. I mean, that on climate change, I'm the only one that is out there saying unambiguously that the science is inconclusive. We oppose a global climate change agenda, and both of my opponents, at one time or another, been wrong on that issue. Take the Law of the Sea Treaty, lost. Both of my opponents, Republican opponents, well, let's just throw Begich in there too. Strong supporters for the Law of the Sea Treaty. Let's talk about amnesty. I mean, Mr. Treadwell has admitted that he supports amnesty for some illegal aliens. We aren't really quite sure where Sullivan is, but we know that his financial backers are absolutely behind amnesty. I mean, you can pick whoever you want. Paul Singer, the Chamber of Commerce, those are good examples. We unequivocally are out there with a firm stance on spending. We advocate the fair tax, where we're actually going to eliminate the IRS. Those are some of the type of bold positions you got to have. You got to have a bold position when it comes to the EPA. And a lot of people say, oh, well, that's just that, as you put it, you said you're a radical guy. I think these are mainstream
radical
concepts,
in a good way.
Mainstream concepts.
Yeah, I agree. No, listen, your analysis is spot on. Bob Dole, Mitt Romney, John McCain, we can't win with those guys. You've got to have contrast. You've got to have somebody like a Reagan or even a Ted Cruz or somebody, even a Sarah Palin, somebody who says, here's what I believe, I'm not backing down. And you're that guy, Joe. I agree with you. But the problem is the media has so savaged attacked you and come after you. And frankly, you made some mistakes that gave them some rope to hang you with. But, that's understandable. Nobody could have really withstood that scrutiny. And I'm afraid that you have been so damaged because of that incredible onslaught. The Glenn calls it you've been hot fingered. And I do not in any way take umbrage with you running. I think you should run. You move the needle to the right, which is great. You hold the other candidates accountable. That's wonderful for the process. But the big question I have, and this is really a really big question, can you emphatically say to our listeners today, without any doubt, that you are not going to run in the general election in any capacity?
Well, Dan, I got to get back to your first statement first before I address
Sure,
that.
go ahead.
And that is that, if we're going to sit back and agree with the polling data, which is what you're relying on, then I might as well just throw in the hat in the race against Murkowski, too, because that polling data showed it was impossible. Showed we were 37 points down a few weeks out from beating her in the primary. And so anytime and basically what you've done is you've opened the playbook of my opponent and say, Joe's a better candidate, but he can't win. The fact is we've had 4 years that have transpired since then. We have, I don't know how many more new voters in this state now. We have a very high turnover in Alaska. I have the best name recognition. I can tell you on the ground. You probably heard I just got the Conservative Patriots Group endorsement, right?
Yes.
Conservative Patriots Group, the biggest Tea Party group in the state, conservative group in the state. And our vote wasn't just a majority. We ended up with more votes total than both Treadwell and Sullivan combined. And that follows up from the Alaska Republican Assembly, where we got a 2/3 vote. We won the only 2 straw polls in the state. And so I would suggest that the proposition you've offered is based upon information that the other candidates are distributing. And I challenged Sullivan at the Republican convention where I spoke, and he's out there passing around this poll that reflects a lower number than what even the Hayes poll reflected in a general election matchup where my name wasn't mentioned in the poll itself.
Joe, fair point. Unfortunately, I only got 60 seconds left. Again, to the question, can you tell our listeners emphatically you will not run in the general?
I will tell you exactly
as a third party,
what I said.
As a third party in any capacity,
I will
other
tell
than
you,
a nominee. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I will tell you exactly what I've said consistently from the beginning. This is a situation where when you look back at 2010, we all know where Treadwell and Sullivan was at on that race.
But, Joe, unfortunately, I'm out of time. Yes or no, you can emphatically
I got to
promise
answer the question this way. They both opposed the Republican nominee. They both opposed reform in 2010. It would be silly for me to make a commitment, even vicariously through you, to them when they have not established a proper baseline of trust.
So you may run as a third-party candidate.
Based upon their support for somebody other than
it's
the
an
Republican
option. It's an
nominee in
option that's
2010.
available for you.
I'm not going to make a commitment to them via you. I've made that position clear because they did not do what was appropriate in 2010, and they can't be trusted in this election either.
Joe Miller, thank you so much. Folks, we'll see you again on Monday. We're off tomorrow. Fagan and Beagle on KOAN.